Week 1 is in the books, and now we're on to Week 2 of the 2020 high school football season. Welcome in, everybody. I'm Alec Etheridge, the managing editor here at the Shelby County Reporter, and this is the Shelby County High School Football Show. As we get you geared up for Week 2 action, that means Week 1 is already in the books, and it was an exciting first week of the season, but now we turn our attention to the second week right here at Spain Park is where our game of the week is going to take place as the Spain Park Jaguars take on the Briarwood Lions, a game that was originally going to be played at Briarwood Christian School, but due to COVID-19 and the space here at Spain Park, they went ahead and moved that game just a couple miles down the road. Not a big deal, as both fan bases should be able to make it to this one pretty easily. I'm actually standing right here in front of some bleachers that they have set up outside of the end zone here where they're going to have extra space for fans or band members or so on, and they've got their regular stands as well. Plenty of room here to social distance, and it's going to be an exciting game between the Jaguars and the Lions as both of those two teams look to start the season 2-0. One of them's going to do so, and one of them is going to pick up that first loss of the season. But you're going to have that situation in a lot of games this week for Shelby County teams, and that's a good thing. That means they started well a week ago in Week 1. We had a lot of teams pick up an opening night victory, including all three of our 7A classification teams, Spain Park, Oak Mountain, and Thompson, pick up big wins. And then in 6A, we had a couple of teams pick up some big wins, including the Briarwood Lions, who are going to take part in our game of the week. They go up and pick up a big win against Fort Payne. We're going to talk about all of the games, what happened last week, a little bit of reaction from those games, and tie them in to what's coming up this week as we get you geared up for the second week of the high school football season. And the best part of the show every year, we didn't get to do it last week being the Week 1 show, but now we have the return of the SCR Stars of the Week, and we'll break down all of the biggest stars from the first week's action of high school football right here in Shelby County. So make sure you tune in at the end of the show to catch all of those stars and their standout performances from the opening week of the 2020 high school football season. Just special for them to get the opportunity to compete when we got to this point in the season, not knowing if that was going to happen after everything with COVID-19. But first, we're going to break down all of this week's action, Week 2 action, the last week before region play kicks off, and we'll start with our game of the week right here at Spain Park High School. As we head into year 3 of doing this high school football show here in Shelby County, this is the first show we are doing from Spain Park High School as they get set to host this big game with a 280 area rival. That's what makes this game so exciting. You've got Briarwood, who's moving up from Class 5A to Class 6A this year, started the season with a 28-20 victory over Fort Payne on the road, a 6A opponent. So a nice start for Briarwood to get some confidence there in Week 1. And then you've got the Spain Park Jaguars, who start the season with a big win. They travel north up to Huntsville the first night of the season on Thursday last week, and they pick up a 52-21 victory in that road matchup, and that was a lot to do with quarterback Bennett Meredith and what he was able to do in the passing game, as well as the athletes he had around him. You look at Cooper Kelly, Jalen Ward, Justin Pegues, these guys stepped up big time on the offensive side of the ball, and then on the defensive side had some playmakers step up as well, especially guys like Jace Dorian, who had a big game on the defensive side of the football, as well as some others. We're going to talk about all of those guys in our SCR Stars of the Week segment later on in the show. But just looking at this game, the big thing you look at is the classification difference. Last year, 2 classifications separated these two teams. You had Briarwood sitting down in 5A, and you had Spain Park in 7A, but the two teams had different seasons. You look at what Briarwood was able to do last year. They finished the season 12-2 in the semifinals of the 5A classification with a 2-point loss, keeping them from getting to the state championship. And then you look at Spain Park. They struggled at times last year, but coming into this season, the Jags had a lot of optimism surrounding them on the offensive side of the ball, which means that defense just needed to get a hair better, and they looked a little bit better in Week 1 against Huntsville. Limited the Panthers to 21 points last week, but more importantly, just played better overall. They made some mistakes throughout the game. They're still a little bit inexperienced. They're still a little bit young on that side of the ball, but you saw an improved defense as well. And if that defense comes along, I'm telling you, it was scary to watch their offense. That's how talented they were last week. You look at what Bennett Meredith was able to do and step in and just have a dominant performance there on the offensive side of the football. And he's got so many weapons around him with a veteran offensive line. That's what makes this Spain Park team so difficult. And you're going up against a Briarwood defense that's going to also be difficult to replicate that success against. This is a Briarwood defense that has success every single year. And last week, even though they gave up 20 points to Fort Payne, they only gave up one first-half touchdown and one second-half touchdown and just 7 points in the second half. So they've got a ton of talent back on that side of the ball, plenty of experience, and they got more comfortable as that game went along last week against Fort Payne. So you're going to look in this game, what to watch for is going to be the Spain Park offense versus the Briarwood defense. Now, if Briarwood can find a little bit of extra oomph on the offensive side of the football, Christopher Fazina, Luke Rebels, they did it all just about last week. They're going to need some other guys to step up, specifically in the receiver game, for them to have a chance to pull off this win against Spain Park, just because of what we've seen from Spain Park's offense. I do think Briarwood's defense will keep this tight for a little while, and they're going to keep their team in the game, but you're going to have that offense step up if you want to walk out of here with a win. But nonetheless, for Briarwood, 2 games against opponents that were a classification up last year to start the season, and one of which in Spain Park was two classifications higher. These are 2 good games that get them prepared for region play. So I do think Spain Park has the upper hand in this game. I think we'll see a competitive battle for a while. But nonetheless, I think both of these teams, the better of it for it moving forward after this game Friday night. But it's going to be a fun atmosphere out here at Spain Park. So if you can, make sure you get your tickets on GoFan and get out here for this game between the Briarwood Lions and the Spain Park Jaguars. 2 other teams that are going to enter this week with 1-0 record, that's going to be the Oak Mountain Eagles and the Pelham Panthers, 2 teams that really some may have been surprised by their opening week performances. I was kind of expecting it. I think these 2 teams have a lot of potential this year, and they have experience back, and that's the key for both of them. Now, Oak Mountain, they have a little bit more veteran experience, where Pelham has some youthful experience. The Panthers started a lot of freshmen and sophomores last year. A lot of those players are back this year, really at every position aside from quarterback, and we saw what Will Lankford was able to do stepping in for older brother Xavier Lankford last week, who graduated in the offseason. You saw Will Lankford step into the starting role last week and looked really comfortable after getting some jitters out of the way, and it really didn't take long, because the offenses in on both sides of the ball there in that Pelham-Mortimer Jordan game really showed up to play. It was a game where you saw a lot of explosiveness early in that matchup. The 2 teams put up 21 apiece in the first half, and that's a Mortimer Jordan team that made it to the semifinals in 5A last year, and Pelham came in ready to roll with them. They put up 21 points in the first half. It was a 21-21 game going into the break, and in the second half, they showed they could use their defense to win a football game. You saw Pelham put up 7 late points on a Gabe Gamble touchdown there early in the fourth quarter, and that ended up making the difference in that matchup as they pull off a 28-21 victory against Mortimer Jordan to open the season. And it's a strong showing for them to show they can win that close game early in the year, and that they can do it against a very talented bunch at Mortimer Jordan. So a 28-21 victory. They did it on both sides of the ball in each half of the game last week. And now going into this week, they get an Oak Mountain team that just dominated its Week 1 matchup with the Chelsea Hornets. Oak Mountain came into that game as the favorite. They had so much experience back, close to 16 starters between the 2 sides of the ball, and they showed why they're going to be a dangerous team this year, mainly because of what they have on the offensive side, but also the defensive side as far as returning experience goes. But you look at that offense, and Evan Smith and Judah Tate they rolled along perfectly in that game. 2 guys that just flourish in this Oak Mountain option attack, and they came out. Judah Tate reeled off a long touchdown run, as well as Evan Smith being able to run the option attack. Those 2 looked good and putting up 38 points, but the defense came out and played spectacular. It was as good a start as you could ask for on the defensive side of the ball. You had 3 interceptions from 2 different guys there, Zach Taylor and Chase Schwinder. So a strong start on the defensive side as well, and also forced a safety at one point, but also gave up a safety. Chelsea's only points of the game did come on a snap over the head. So 38-2 win for Oak Mountain in that game, and a 28-21 win for Pelham over Mortimer Jordan. Now you have these 2 teams coming into this matchup looking to continue that momentum going into Week 3 and the first week of region play. When you look at Pelham, they won 3 of their last 4 games last year after starting the season 0-6. Oak Mountain struggled at times last year as well. So both these teams starting to gain some confidence and I think that bodes well for both going into this matchup. When you look at the experience on both sides, Oak Mountain just has a slight edge with older kids. They may not be more experienced. They've started about the same at both schools, but Oak Mountain's kids are going to be a little bit older than what Pelham's got right now. That could make the difference, but if Oak Mountain's going to win this game, they're going to have to do it stopping the run. Dylan Peterson and Gabe Gamble, two backs there at Pelham that are just very capable of going over 100 yards each and every game. So those are two guys that Oak Mountain's going to have to be focused on. But if they get too focused on them, Will Langford showed that he could throw the ball last week. He's got some athleticism. He can use his legs as well. But he showed that he could throw the football and find the open receiver. Several guys there in Walker Lyles, Chase Christian, as well as a couple of others that can really step up and help in the passing game as well. So Oak Mountain's going to have to be honed in on that. They can bring that enthusiasm that they had defensively in week one. I think with their veteran experience, they should be able to pick up another win and start the season 2-0. But this is going to be a tightly contested game. Two rivals that are excited to square off against one another, and Pelham always wants this game. Anytime these teams play, Pelham wants to win this one, and they're looking for redemption after last year's loss, a 52-21 thumping, if I remember correctly. So we'll see how Pelham comes into this one, but I think Pelham's going to be a little bit more amped up and ready to go looking for redemption, but they're going to have to deal with a lot of Oak Mountain experience to be able to overcome and win this football game. Overall, the Thompson Warriors looked fantastic in their Week 1 opener, the battle of defending state champions, as they hosted the Oxford Yellow Jackets, who claimed the 6A title last year. And this opener was hyped up, and it was an exciting matchup to watch between the two defending state champs. But Thompson ends up getting the better of Oxford in a 56-34 win. But when you look closely at that game, it was a game that Thompson struggled with on the defensive side, and that's where we've heard the hype all summer, was that they had possibly the best defense in the state, and they gave up 34 points in that win. Now the offense, however, look sharp, and that's with a new starting quarterback again this year. Last year, Sawyer Pate stepped in for Talia Tungavailoa and did a tremendous job, 3,000-plus yards, 40-plus touchdowns. He really didn't skip a beat, and they didn't have a drop-off in talent there at the quarterback position. You look at what Connor Harrell was able to do the other night, and this was a little bit of a new system. Mark Freeman's able to do a lot of different things with his offense as the head coach, but this year there's a lot more RPO there for the Warriors, and Connor Harrell ran it perfectly and had an extremely impressive night in his debut as the junior starting quarterback. Posted up 5 touchdowns in that game. And then you look at Jarrett Crockett, the running back, had 4 touchdowns. So when you look at what Harrell was able to do, he had a couple of touchdowns with his legs, a few with his arm. It was a solid night overall. And then Jarrett Crockett with 4 touchdowns rushing, 3 rushing, 1 receiving, all in the first half of that game. In Thompson in the first quarter, they looked like the team we expected them to look like, a 21-0 lead. Defense was playing great. The offense rolling along, doing what they needed to do. The rest of the game, however, it was leaned on more heavily on the offense as Oxford came back and scored 21 in the second quarter and then threw in a few more in the second half as well. But the game really never in doubt. It felt like Thompson kind of controlled it throughout until there were a few mistakes late in that contest. But overall, the defense they struggled containing Trey Higgins, the quarterback there at Oxford. And that's something, when you saw Tony Mitchell go down, he's the cornerback, defensive back that's playing kind of all over the secondary this year at Thompson. He's got a ton of Division I offers. He went down early in that game, and Oxford kind of capitalized on that. Higgins was able to take advantage both with his arm, finding open space, but also with his legs, which was key because the front seven's supposed to be extremely good, especially at the linebacker position for Thompson. So we'll see if they can improve on that going into Week 2 as they get set up for a road matchup with Sparkman. But this is a Sparkman team. They can be talented. They work hard. They're coached well, but they're coming off a difficult 22-7 loss to 6A Gardendale in Week 1. So you saw a team that didn't score a ton of points in that first matchup and gave up 22 points to a 6A team. Gardendale's going to be a talented 6A team, but now you're going from that to taking on possibly the best team in Class 7A. That's going to be a tough jump. I think you're going to see a Thompson defense that's going to be motivated, want to prove that they're better than what we saw last week. I know Freeman's going to want them to do that. Defensive coordinator Sean DeFore is going to do the same thing. This team's going to be fired up as they travel on the road, and that defense is going to come to play, and I think the offense shouldn't have any problem. It continues to just shine in Freeman's offense. It's something that's special to watch, and I expect that to continue. So if that defense comes along, I expect them to play with a lot of motivation, a chip on their shoulder, something to prove going into this week, because they have the talent, and once they play that way, you're going to see a defense that's going to be scary to go up against. So I think Thompson's going to put both things together this week. I think you're going to see another dominant performance as they take care of Sparkman and improve to 2-0. A rivalry game that went down to the wire a season ago, the Helena Huskies and Chelsea Hornets set to square off again this year. This time around, however, not a region matchup. Last year, these two teams went in battling for first place in the region midway through the season, and we know what happened the rest of the way. Helena picks up a field goal in the last minute off the leg of Logan Maloney. They go on to win that game 31-28, go on to win the region championship as well, while the Chelsea Hornets go on to lose 2 more games in a row by 3 points or less. So that was a tough way for Chelsea to lose that game, but then go on and struggle those next couple of games as well. So now this year, they're going to have redemption on their mind, but it's going to be tough. This is a Helena team coming in off a 43-0 thumping of Dallas County to open the season. Now, Dallas County is a 4A classification team. Helena should have handled business in that one, but they handled it a little bit better than I thought they would. Losing a lot of experience, 28 seniors off of last year's team, Helena came in and looked great in their opener, and that's because they were able to do what they like to do. They played solid defense, and they pounded the football on offense with the running attack. And they've got 3 guys there. A.J. Horsted really stepped up and played a great game there at running back in week 1 for the Huskies. And then you look at Marquise Johnson, last year's leading rusher in the county, as well as a guy like Kobe Hughes. That's 3 talented backs there with a solid offensive line led by Seaburn Hines and a few other returnees and some guys that are coming along up there. So the offensive line is going to continue to get better. And then quarterback Mac Turner made a couple of big plays as well. The defense made some plays. There was a kickoff return for a touchdown. So just a lot of confidence there for Helena, while Chelsea is coming in off of that 38-2 loss to Oak Mountain. And that's not a big momentum boost if you're a Hornets fan going into this game. That said, you have to be impressed by how hard they played. They did look physical still, and they played hard. There was no lack of effort in the way of Chelsea. They're just an inexperienced bunch, and they're going to gain that experience throughout the season, so you can't really fault them for that. Early in the year, they had to shut down for a little bit over the summer because of COVID-19. Didn't get a spring practice, trying to form in a new quarterback in Nick Neves and an extremely inexperienced offensive line. Every starter up front on the offensive line is new this year. The defense loses some key players in the front 7. So really the only place you have experience at Chelsea right now is at receiver, at running back, and in the secondary. The secondary is probably the most important because of what they can do to kind of anchor down the defensive side of the football. But offensively, you've got 2 key positions in running back and receiver that have so much experience, especially in Collier Blair at running back, but you don't have an offensive line that can give you time to really find anything in the passing game or the running game right now. So as they get experience up front, they do have enough talent on the offensive side of the ball to improve as this season goes along. It's just a matter of how much of a jump can Chelsea make from week 1 to week 2. The defense is going to face a challenge, especially in the front 7. They're coming off a performance where they gave up 231 rushing yards last week to Oak Mountain, and this week they're taking on a Helena team that ran for 233 yards on the ground a week ago. So they're going to have to really shore up the defensive front there and stop the rushing attack if they want a chance in this one. And they're also going to have to find some success on the offensive side of the football. But the best thing they can do, play some good defense, keep your team in the game, and then maybe the offense comes along throughout this game with a little bit more experience. But when you look at it, Helena's just got that upper hand experience-wise, and also you look at the 2 things, the keys that I just pointed out. Helena's rushing attack, I think, going to be too much for Chelsea's defense. But these are 2 teams that just need this kind of game to really get some momentum, get any sort of confidence they can going in to region play, because they did both lose a lot of talent. I think you're going to see that. I think you'll see a better effort from both of these teams moving forward because you've got a lot of guys gaining experience in this matchup. At the end of the day, Helena, though, they should have the upper hand. They should improve to 2-0 as they head into that first week of region action. An early 12-0 lead for the Calera Eagles, and everything looked to be going good for them in their season opener. But then the final 8 minutes struck, and they gave up 14 unanswered to drop that opener to Demopolis 14-12. And despite the outcome, despite the loss on the record there, that was an improvement for the Calera Eagles. You look at what they did defensively. That's where you have to be the most impressed. A team that really faltered throughout last year, the last couple of years, in their move up to the 6A classification. They struggled with everybody on the defensive side of the football, and in this game they were able to pick up 3 interceptions, and they played some great football there on that side of the ball. The offense still has a ways to go. They're so young on both sides, but specifically at key positions on the offensive side of the football, specifically at quarterback, where Tyler Nelson is in his second year as a starter, but still just a sophomore there at Calera. So they lose that game 14-12, but the defense played incredible football throughout that contest, which is something you need to take away if you're a Calera player or fan, that they can really they've made their strides and are a better team this year. This is their third year in the 6A classification, and I think that's the first time I've been impressed by an overall performance that they've played. Now, they're still young, they're still inexperienced at a lot of positions, but to be in a 2-point game against a Demopolis team that's won a lot of football games the last several years, that's an impressive start to the season. And you were right there, had a chance to win the game. Really the only thing that cost them, they missed an extra point early and had to go for 2 on their next touchdown score and missed that 2-point conversion as well. So special teams was really the thing that hit them at the end of the day. But overall, not a bad performance week 1. Now they get to go into a matchup against Jackson Olin, another chance to get better. That's how you have to look at this. Jackson Olin is coming off a big win in week 1, 62-7 over Woodlawn, another 6A team, but Woodlawn not as good as Calera. I don't care how inexperienced you are. Calera is a better team. And so this is going to be a tougher test for Jackson Olin, especially after what we saw from Calera last week. If they can get a little bit better this week, I think you're going to see a more closely contested game again in this one. I think you'll see Calera with a chance in the second half. If that offense gets better, you're going to see a Calera team that not only gets better in this game, but has a chance to compete for a playoff spot this year. And early in the season, I said this team was unknown, but after seeing them week 1, they can battle for a playoff spot if they continue to get better every week. That's how impressed I was with what their defense did during the first week of the season. So a big opportunity for Calera to continue to get better this week. We'll see how they handle that, how the offense handles that position, and tries to take that next step to really help this program become a playoff team. After Montevallo had to cancel their season opener due to COVID-19, there was some concern that they wouldn't be able to play their Week 2 matchup with county foe and rival Shelby County, but they've both worked it out, and the game, which was scheduled originally for Thursday night of this week, will now be played on Friday night at Shelby County High School. So the two teams able to work it out. Montevallo's geared up and ready to go after dealing with COVID-19 early on in the season, late in fall practice. So they got a little bit extra time now. They're ready to go, prepped up and ready for a matchup with the Wildcats, a game that was thrilling to watch last year, 56-50 final in favor of Montevallo. Now, we know that the Bulldogs have lost a lot of that talent from last year's team. J.J. Evans, Jamarius Carter, Dion Gilliland, and Malik Inabanet, all gone from that offense, all players that totaled more than 1,000 yards at each of their positions, and Inabanet had more than 7,000 or 6,000 in his career there for the Bulldogs. So that's a lot of talent they're going to lose on the offensive side, while Shelby County, they're going to open the season with a lot of experience back on this year's team. You have to think that gives them an advantage. Not only that, it's both teams' season opener now, as Montevallo didn't get to play last week, so the experience is going to come in handy even more. And right now, Montevallo just doesn't have a ton of that across the board, and they're under a first-year head coach in Blake Bourne. This is a team that's got a ton of young athletes. They're going to be good eventually, but game one, you've got to lean in favor of the Shelby County Wildcats with the experience they have under head coach Heath Childers and the experience they have talent-wise back on this year's team, from a team that finished last year winning 3 games in a row, a team that's going to want to power the football with Raheem Montgomery at running back, Tyrese Goodman at running back, as well as a few others, including Caden Cardwell at the quarterback position, can run the football and has a very accurate arm passing. But most dangerously for Montevallo is going to be having to go up against the offensive line of Shelby County. The Wildcats bring back a ton of experience there, and they're going to really hammer things down to try to open up that option attack in the run game. And if you get too careful with focusing on that, then Isaac Montgomery in the passing game at receiver can hurt you too. So there's just a lot of experience back on the offensive side of the football for Shelby County. I think at the end of the game, that's going to make the difference. The defense, however, is going to be the difference in what the score is. If the defense comes ready to play for Shelby County, that's where they need the most improvement. That's where they've needed the most improvement the last several years. I think they've got it this year because of the experience. If they're able to bring that to the table in game one, I think they've got something to prove. I think they're going to show you that they're here this year, and they're going to be the difference in what makes this team maybe a 2 or 3 seed in the playoffs versus one that could easily be a region champion at the end of the year. And that's how talented the offense can be. So if the defense comes along, this team's not only going to end a playoff drought that dates back to 2009, but they're going to be competing easily for a top 2 spot in their region, in my opinion. So a good chance for this team to get some momentum on both sides of the ball, but nonetheless just good for both of these teams to be able to open the season. Some concern as to whether that would happen, and now the two rivals get to square off against each other, two of the oldest schools in Shelby County, so it'll be fun to see them get back on the gridiron and go after it against one another this Friday night in a fun rivalry matchup. So we're to the point in the program where we would normally talk about the Vincent Yellow Jackets, but they again have had to cancel 2 more games on their schedule due to COVID-19. Canceled their opener last week against Winterboro the afternoon of the game, just shortly about 6 hours before kickoff in that opener. Had to cancel that one with Winterboro. Now they've canceled their next 2 as well, so they'll start out 0-3 with forfeits, and that includes their first region matchup as well. They hope to get back to action September 11th, and with them quarantining for the next 2 weeks, you would think that they would be able to get back on the field there and get ready for that football game on September 11th. But we do have 2 other games to talk about. That's going to be the Cornerstone Chargers and the Evangel Lightning. Evangel off to another strong start this year as they pick up a 40-6 win in Week 1 over Meadowview, and that was the halftime score. They scored 40 in the first half, limited Meadowview to 6 points, and then the game was called due to weather. So an easy win on opening night for Evangel, and largely due to what Eli Whitfield was able to do at the quarterback position. They lose so much talent on the offensive side of the ball with Noah Shears, Will Farrell, and Tyler Henderson, but he stepped in, had a big game in the opener. Whitfield did, replacing Henderson at the quarterback position, able to use his legs, able to use his arm, and led Evangel to a big win. Now he'll look to do so, taking on East Central Homeschool this Friday night, and I expect him to have another big game. Evangel in 8-man action, which this will be, they roll. They have not lost a game yet under head coach Tim Smith in 8-man football. They'll be ready to go in that contest. As for the Cornerstone Chargers, a team that last week struggled at times but showed some positive things at times as well. They lost their opener 28-12, but were in that game 14-12 at one point there in the second half. Just ran out of steam defensively, and the offense couldn't find the plays they needed late to stay in that game. But overall, not a bad performance. Just need to find that extra little bit of effort going into this matchup this week as they take on Banks Academy, and a strong opportunity again for them to pick up a win. They could have picked up a win last week, now have another opportunity against Banks, a team that's coming off a 41-40 loss in their season opener to Pickens Academy. So you have to take advantage, if you're Cornerstone, of that defense of Banks that struggled last week. If they can do that, they'll have a strong chance to win this matchup and improve their record to 1-1. Now it's time for the return of my favorite segment each year. That's the SCR Stars of the Week, as we list off the best performances from the first week of action. And this is something I started doing last year, where we mentioned a lot more than just one name. It originally started as the SCR Star of the Week. Last year we set that up to where we just, the best performances from every game we kind of highlighted, kind of like helmet stickers you see on ESPN, kind of a similar little deal here. And this year, even more emphasis on that, just because we don't know how long we're going to get to play, and we didn't know if we were going to get to play at all this year. So highlighting these performances even more important this year, and we want to make sure everybody that had a great night gets their recognition. And we're going to start right here with Spain Park and what they were able to do in their opener. And Bennett Meredith, the quarterback, 15 of 20, 391 yards and 4 touchdowns in his opener against Huntsville. The first game he started as a junior quarterback, he stepped in and played flawless football. And a big reason for that are the playmakers he had around him. You look at wide receiver, Jalen Ward and Cooper Kelly, both big games. Ward, 6 catches, 192 yards and a touchdown. Cooper Kelly, 4 receptions, 110 yards, and a touchdown. And then you look at running back, and Justin Pegues, a guy that was able to have 12 carries, 119 yards, and 2 touchdowns rushing, and then also added another 37 yards and a touchdown receiving as well. So that's Spain Park offense. You look at those 3 positions, quarterback, receiver, and running back, and they've got a veteran offensive line. You better watch out if your team's in Class 7A Region 3, because that offense is possibly going to be one of the most dangerous in the state this year. And on the defensive side, we saw a lot of improvement from that side of the ball as well. Forced several turnovers, 3 turnovers to be exact. And you look at a guy like Jace Dorian, 8.5 tackles in that game. Pearson Cole, as well as Michael Ogletree, all had big performances, as well as the entire defense. Their entire defense deserves some credit as they look to improve from last year's defense, which struggled throughout the season. So a strong start in general on both sides of the ball for the Spain Park Jaguars. Looking at the Thompson Warriors, another 7A team, and Connor Harrell, another junior quarterback that stepped into the starting role this year, replacing back-to-back All-State quarterbacks, back-to-back Class 7A quarterback offensive players of the year, and Harrell steps in and was flawless in his opener. A couple of little things he'll improve on throughout the season, but overall 15 of 18 passing, 269 yards and 3 touchdowns through the air. And then you add in his rushing performance as well, 9 carries for 35 yards and 2 touchdowns. So 5 total touchdowns in his debut there for the Warriors. A strong performance as he lifted them to an opening win, 56-34 over the defending state champ Oxford Yellow Jackets. And you look at the weapons he has around him as well. Jarrett Crockett, a big performance, 17 carries for 132 yards and 4 touchdowns. And then at receiver, J.B. Mitchell and Trey Roberson, they're the 2 seniors we've talked about a lot. They're back. Mitchell had 93 yards on 5 catches and Roberson 89 on 8 catches. Both of those guys also a touchdown in that performance as well. So a strong offensive performance there. The defense needs to show some improvement. Jeremiah Alexander led the team in tackles. He's going to be the star this year, but they've got stars all across that defense, and they have to play better moving forward for Thompson to repeat as state champions. At Oak Mountain, we saw a strong opening performance from the Eagles, and it largely rested on the shoulders of Judah Tate. Running back there had 96 yards and 3 touchdowns on 17 carries. So a strong performance from him in the 38-2 win over Chelsea, but also the defense and what we saw from them on that side of the ball. Zach Taylor had 2 interceptions there for that Oak Mountain defense as well. Chase Schwinder had 1 interception. So a strong performance defensively as they didn't allow a score all night and technically pitched the shutout as the snap over the head out of the back of the end zone was Chelsea's only points off of a safety. So a strong performance from Oak Mountain to open the season. You look at also what Briarwood was able to do in their opener as they traveled up to Fort Payne, and Luke Rebels with a strong opening night there as the starting running back this year. He got some time at starting running back last year in place of Luke Pruitt when he was injured, but he gets his first true start this season as a junior, and Rebels reeled off 4 receptions for 67 yards and a touchdown. That's key. He's going to be big in the passing game this year with some inconsistency at that position, or inexperience, I should say, early in the season. The passing game will come along overall throughout the year, but early in the season, Luke Rebels is going to be key there, but he also added 15 carries for 100 yards on the ground as well. So a strong performance overall there as he had a 46-yard touchdown reception and 100 yards rushing for Luke Rebels. And defensively, Tyler Wall, possibly the performance of the week, especially by defenders. This kid came out with 27 total tackles that he was a part of and also had a couple of big plays on the offensive side of the ball, ran for 2 touchdowns there as well out of their Wildcat package. So Tyler Wall doing everything he can, had the team's first 2 touchdowns offensively for a 14-0 lead, while also giving the offense the ball back because of his stellar play on the defensive side of the football as well. Other 6A teams, the Pelham Panthers, a strong opening night from Gabe Gamble as he settles in again this year after replacing Dylan Peterson last year. Gamble was a sophomore this year. He's a junior. Peterson's back and healthy too. As a senior this year, both guys had strong performances, but Gamble stepped in, had 12 carries for 90 yards and the game-winning touchdown there in the fourth quarter. Peterson also near 70 yards in that game, so those two going to be two powerful backs to keep your eye on as an opposing defense going up against Pelham this year. And look at what Will Langford was able to do. A nice steady start there at quarterback for the Panthers. His first start had 142 passing yards and 29 rushing yards with 2 touchdowns there for the Panthers. Really ran the show well and got comfortable. Defense showed some promise as well, and I think you're going to see them get even better as the year goes along. The Helena Huskies, the offense was really a balanced attack. They played a lot of guys in their 43-0 route. Marquise Johnson, A.J. Horsted, Kobe Hughes, guys that we've already mentioned, had solid starts offensively, as well as Mac Turner and some others there. Kason Bustamino at receiver, Mac Turner at quarterback. A lot of consistency and balance across the board on offense. No breakout numbers there to talk about. But you look at defense, Iceberg Cave's going to be a guy that's key this year because of what he was able to do defensively last year at linebacker and also having to replace Nathan Dunaway, the team's leading tackler this year. Iceberg stepped in his opener and had 8 tackles, including 1 for loss. And I did forget to mention one name, but in Kobe Prentice, who's with the Calera Eagles, who had 112 yards on 5 catches for that Calera offense. So a strong start for him. He was really the sole thing on Calera's offense in that opener for the Eagles in their 14-12 loss. The defense, however, played some amazing football there for Calera. They had 3 total interceptions, including a pick 6 of 90 yards by Art Amos. So a strong start overall for Calera's defense, and we'll see their offense come along as the season moves on. But overall, a strong first week for county players and athletes. We'll look for that to continue. Look forward to mentioning more of your names on the SCR Stars of the Week segment as we move throughout the season. And I expect with a lot of county matchups this week, I expect a lot of names to step up and make themselves known in Week 2 of the high school football season. That's going to do it for our Week 2 show from here at Spain Park High School as we get you geared up for another week of high school football. We'll be live here on Friday night with our pregame show, breaking down the games, getting you ready for another night of high school football action. This week, all of our games taking place on Friday night, no Thursday or Saturday night games, so we'll have a full slate of games to talk about. A lot of excitement this week with several county matchups in the last week before teams get ready for region play, so a big one to gain some momentum and some confidence. We'll be out here breaking it all down live from Spain Park High School. Tune into that on Facebook and follow along for our great coverage. For now, that's going to do it from here at Spain Park.